The following story is a work of dramatized narrative based on historical events, psychological profiles, and investigative reports. While it draws inspiration from real-life incidents, names, events, and some details have been fictionalized for storytelling purposes. The story may contain sensitive content including crime, violence, and disturbing behavior. Viewer discretion is advised. The narrative is intended for mature audiences and for educational or entertainment purposes only. The Culpeper Twins, Alexander and Benjamin, were born on a stormy night in October 1954 in a small, seemingly ordinary town in Virginia. From the very beginning, their birth was shrouded in unusual circumstances. The local midwife noted a strange stillness in the air, a heavy silence that seemed to follow their arrival. Their parents, middle-class professionals, initially reveled in the joy of two healthy sons but soon discovered that these were no ordinary children. From the cradle, Alexander and Benjamin exhibited behaviors that unsettled even the most patient caregivers. Early signs of peculiarity as infants, the twins showed an uncanny synchronization in movement and expression. When one cried, the other would pause, sometimes even smiling. By the age of 2, they could communicate through gestures and sounds that seemed almost like a private language. Their parents assumed this was merely a display of sibling closeness, unaware that such behavior could indicate a deep, unusual cognitive connection. Neighbors often remarked on how the twins seemed to anticipate each other's thoughts. If one went to a corner of the room, the other would follow without being told. These small, subtle behaviors would become the foundation for the twins' complex and troubling patterns as they grew older. Early intelligence and obsession with secrecy. By age 5, Alexander and Benjamin demonstrated extraordinary intelligence. They could read at levels far beyond their years and solve puzzles that baffled their teachers. While other children played with toys and games, the twins preferred to create elaborate secret codes and miniature societies within their bedroom walls. They would spend hours cataloging insects, observing patterns, and drawing cryptic symbols in notebooks that they guarded fiercely. This obsession with secrecy would become a hallmark of their personality. Their parents noticed the intensity but mistook it for brilliance. Friends and relatives often commented on how imaginative the boys were, unaware that their creative pursuits were laced with dark undertones. School life and social patterns. Once school began, the twins stood out immediately. They were academically gifted, often finishing assignments hours before their classmates. Teachers were impressed by their intellect but found them unsettling. The boys would sometimes mimic classmates' behavior with eerie precision or recite facts no child should know. Socially, the twins were selective. They had few friends, preferring the company of each other, and would isolate themselves during recess, whispering in their secret code. Their isolation fueled rumors among classmates. Some believed the twins were clairvoyant, able to predict events or answer questions before they were asked. Others simply avoided them, unnerved by their intensity. At home, the boys began collecting items of interest: animal bones, discarded objects, and anything that could be used to study patterns or create hidden compartments. Hints of moral ambiguity. By the age of 8, subtle signs of moral ambiguity began to surface. Neighbors noticed missing pets, strange animal tracks, or unexplained noises near the Culpeper residence. The twins would display fascination with insects and small animals, sometimes observing them for hours in ways that seemed detached from empathy. Their parents began to worry but found no concrete evidence to intervene. The twins' fascination with secrecy, observation, and control hinted at a psychological complexity that was rare and alarming. While they excelled academically, their emotional development remained unusual, showing a disconnect from social norms and ethical boundaries. Family dynamics. The Culpeper family dynamics further shaped the twins' early years. Their father, a stern and ambitious man, demanded excellence in school and discipline at home. Their mother, a quiet but observant woman, attempted to mediate conflicts and understand the twins' peculiarities. Despite their love, both parents struggled to comprehend the depth of their son's intelligence, intertwined with their unsettling behaviors. Family dinners, once a time of warmth, became arenas of subtle tension. The twins would exchange knowing glances, communicate in secret codes, or even manipulate each other's reactions for amusement. By adolescence, their influence over each other became a force both protective and potentially destructive. Conclusion of early life phase. The early years of Alexander and Benjamin Culpeper set the stage for the complex, dark, and mysterious story that would follow. From a seemingly ordinary beginning, their extraordinary intellect, secretive behaviors, and moral ambiguity foreshadowed a life that would confound law enforcement, challenge societal norms, and become one of America's most perplexing enigmas. Their childhood was not simply a tale of brilliance. It was the origin of patterns, obsessions, and a bond that would later propel them into a series of events so unsettling that authorities would later classify their story as a file America tried to forget. Alexander and Benjamin Culpeper's bond went far beyond ordinary sibling closeness. By the age of 10, their connection had evolved into something almost unexplainable. A seamless, instinctive communication that did not rely on words. Teachers and classmates noticed that one twin often seemed to know exactly what the other was thinking, reacting simultaneously to events or questions. This bond became a source of fascination for the twins and a source of concern for the adults around them. Their parents described it as telepathy in jest. Yet the consistency of their synchronized behaviors suggested a deeper phenomenon. They could coordinate pranks with perfect timing, complete each other's sentences, and anticipate each other's reactions in social situations. Private codes and secret languages. Early on, the twins developed a private system of codes. What started as simple hand signals and glances transformed into a complex written language with its own symbols and syntax. They kept notebooks filled with cryptic entries, diagrams, and coded messages. These notebooks were heavily guarded, hidden in secret compartments behind walls or under floorboards. At school, they would occasionally pass notes in this private language, which baffled teachers who could not decipher it. Even when questioned, the twins laughed and insisted it was just a game. But in truth, their coded communication allowed them to plan, organize, and manipulate situations without detection. Shared habits and rituals. The twins' routines were highly synchronized. They ate at the same time, read the same books, and even mimicked each other's posture and gestures. In their bedroom, they established a ritualized environment, a structured layout of objects, books, and collections designed to reflect their private world. This space became a sanctuary where they could explore their curiosities without interference from adults or peers. The ritualistic nature of their behaviors extended to their moral experiments. The twins would test the reactions of animals, neighbors, and classmates to various stimuli. While some of these experiments were innocent, others revealed a lack of empathy, hinting at darker tendencies. Their fascination with control and observation would later become a defining trait of their criminal activities. Manipulation and psychological games. Even in childhood, the Culpeper twins displayed remarkable skill at psychological manipulation. They could charm, confuse, or intimidate peers and adults with minimal effort. One twin would often act as a decoy while the other carried out an experiment or mischief, maintaining plausible deniability. These early exercises in manipulation were not merely playful, they were training grounds. The twins learned how to read emotions, exploit weaknesses, and predict behavior with alarming accuracy. By adolescence, these skills would escalate into morally ambiguous and criminal activities. Early signs of obsession. As the twins grew older, their obsessions deepened. They became fascinated with themes of secrecy, death, and power. They would spend hours cataloging incidents in their neighborhood, noting patterns of behavior in people and animals alike. This cataloging extended beyond curiosity. It was the foundation for a worldview centered on control, observation, and hidden knowledge. Their obsessions were closely tied to their bond. They reinforced each other's ideas, creating a feedback loop that amplified their interests and behaviors. Attempts by teachers or parents to intervene often failed because the twins acted in perfect unison, making it nearly impossible to separate or influence one without the other. Influence over each other. The Culpeper twins' bond was protective but also potentially dangerous. While they provided each other with emotional support, they also reinforced each other's darker impulses. Ideas or experiments introduced by one twin were almost immediately mirrored or expanded by the other. This mutual reinforcement created a psychological echo chamber, accelerating the development of behaviors that might have otherwise remained dormant. Friends and classmates who tried to intervene or challenge the twins often found themselves subtly coerced or manipulated. Even adults struggled to understand the depth of the twins' connection, mistaking their synchronization for cleverness or charm. Foreshadowing of future crimes, the twins' secret bond laid the groundwork for the more sinister chapters of their lives. Their early experiments in manipulation, secrecy, and control foreshadowed the behaviors that would later attract law enforcement attention. By the time they reached adolescence, the pattern was clear. The Culpeper twins were united not just by blood, but by an almost psychic connection that amplified both their intelligence and their potential for darkness. Conclusion of the Secret Bond Phase. Part 2 of the story emphasizes that Alexander and Benjamin were not ordinary siblings. Their unique bond, secret codes, rituals, and shared obsessions created a world in which they could operate undetected, manipulate those around them, and cultivate skills that would later make them subjects of national interest. This secretive, symbiotic relationship was both their greatest strength and their most dangerous liability. By the time Alexander and Benjamin Culpeper reached early adolescence, their unusual bond and extraordinary intelligence began manifesting in more troubling ways. What had once been harmless experimentation or coded communication transformed into actions that disturbed neighbors, teachers, and even family members. Small items would go missing: coins, household objects, toys from peers, and the twins always seemed to be in the right place at the wrong time, leaving adults puzzled. Their methodical approach to mischief suggested calculation rather than random behavior. Patterns began to emerge. The twins carefully observed reactions, cataloged responses, and adapted their behaviors to achieve desired effects. Neighborhood oddities, local pets, sometimes disappeared without explanation, only to reappear days later in strange conditions. A neighbor's cat was found trapped in the twins' secret outdoor lair, unharmed but frightened. Birds would vanish from cages, and small wildlife in the area seemed to avoid the twins' yard entirely. Rumors began circulating that the twins had a fascination with capturing and experimenting on animals, though no evidence was ever directly linked to them. Teachers noticed that the twins were unusually observant during recess and other free periods. They would linger near classmates' games, subtly manipulating rules or outcomes without drawing attention. Other children often felt an unspoken pressure or unease around them, unsure how the twins always seemed to know what would happen next. Early criminal tendencies. The Culpeper twins' first minor crimes were calculated yet cautious. They would sneak into neighbors' yards to retrieve forbidden items, explore abandoned buildings, or take small amounts of money without detection. Their intelligence allowed them to anticipate potential witnesses and create alibis for themselves. Parents of affected children reported missing objects, and some neighbors suspected the twins. However, there was always a lack of concrete proof. The twins' ability to work in perfect synchrony and communicate silently made it nearly impossible to catch them in the act. Manipulating adults. The twins' manipulative skills extended to adults as well. Teachers who tried to discipline them found the boys unusually compliant on the surface, only to discover later that the twins had circumvented rules in subtle ways. For instance, a missing notebook from one twin's desk would reappear in another child's bag, creating confusion and mistrust among classmates. Even family members struggled to address these behaviors. The twins would plead innocence, redirect attention, or subtly guilt parents into questioning their own suspicions. Their intelligence and bond gave them an almost preternatural ability to avoid consequences, emboldening them to escalate their actions. Patterns of observation. Central to the twins' small crimes was meticulous observation. Every act, no matter how minor, was documented mentally or physically in their secret journals. They recorded who noticed what, which methods succeeded in evading detection, and which strategies elicited the strongest reactions from adults or peers. This cataloging became increasingly sophisticated, forming a blueprint for future activities that would later alarm law enforcement. Their experiments were not limited to property or animals. They extended to human behavior. The twins would test limits. How far could they push a friend before compliance faltered? How would a neighbor react to subtle threats or manipulations? Each success reinforced their sense of power and skill, slowly desensitizing them to moral considerations. Escalating incidents. By their early teens, incidents in the neighborhood escalated. A local garden was destroyed under mysterious circumstances. Chickens were found in odd locations, and reports of small break-ins increased. The twins' synchronized teamwork was always evident. While one distracted witnesses, the other carried out the act. Parents and community members began whispering about the Culpeper boys, with a mixture of curiosity and fear. The twins thrived on this attention, using it to further manipulate perceptions and maintain control over situations. First encounters with law enforcement. Local police became aware of minor thefts and odd incidents linked to the twins. However, no charges were filed due to lack of direct evidence. Officers described the boys as calculating for their age and uncannily coordinated, yet frustratingly untouchable. These early brushes with law enforcement would lay the groundwork for more serious scrutiny later in life. Foreshadowing greater crimes. The patterns established in these early crimes, observation, manipulation, secrecy, and evasion, foreshadowed the more severe actions that would come. The twins' fascination with control and experimentation was no longer just a childhood quirk. It had become an integral part of their identity. Conclusion of escalation phase. Part 3 establishes the transition from childhood mischief to deliberate, morally ambiguous behavior. The Culpeper twins were no longer just unusual. They were methodical, intelligent, and increasingly bold in testing boundaries. Their small crimes created a sense of fear and mystery in their community, laying the foundation for the national attention that would follow. A major incident emerges. By the late 1960s. Alexander and Benjamin Culpeper had transitioned from minor mischief to more serious, troubling behaviors. The town that had once whispered about missing pets and stolen trinkets now faced events that could no longer be ignored. A pivotal incident occurred that would shift the twins from local curiosities to subjects of intense law enforcement scrutiny. One summer evening, a neighbor reported the disappearance of a child's pet dog, only to find it days later abandoned in a remote field, displaying signs of tampering that were deeply disturbing. The twins, now in their mid-teens, were reportedly seen in the area around the same time. While circumstantial, the pattern of their previous activities cast a shadow of suspicion. Introduction of law enforcement. The incident caught the attention of the local sheriff, who began investigating the twins more closely. Officers interviewed parents, neighbors, and school personnel. While the twins maintained a facade of innocence, subtle inconsistencies in their stories and their eerily calm demeanor during questioning heightened concern. The sheriff's office documented these interactions meticulously. Reports highlighted the twins' uncanny ability to coordinate answers, deflect suspicion, and remain emotionally detached in situations that would unsettle most adolescents. Escalating psychological profile. The major incident prompted initial psychological assessments. Although informal and limited in scope, the evaluations suggested high intelligence coupled with traits of manipulation, detachment, and obsessive focus on secrecy. The twins were not merely mischievous. Their behaviors reflected a complex, emerging psychological pattern that warranted deeper investigation. Special attention was drawn to their interactions with each other. The twins' synchronized communication and shared understanding were described as almost telepathic, suggesting an unusual cognitive and emotional connection that reinforced their antisocial tendencies. Community reaction. The community's response was a mix of fear, fascination, and disbelief. Parents became wary of their children playing near the Culpeper home. Neighbors reported feeling watched, sometimes seeing the twins observing from hidden vantage points for hours. Rumors spread rapidly, painting the twins as either brilliant prodigies or deeply disturbing individuals. Local newspapers covered the incidents with sensational headlines, further complicating the family's private life. Alexander and Benjamin, aware of the growing attention, seemed to take perverse satisfaction in their notoriety, continuing their secretive behaviors with increased sophistication. Evidence of escalation. Investigators began compiling evidence from multiple incidents. Animal tampering, theft, minor vandalism, and behavioral manipulation. While still insufficient for legal action, the accumulation of patterns painted a clearer picture of premeditation and control. The twins' ability to evade consequences and manipulate witnesses indicated a level of calculated sophistication rarely seen in adolescence. The turning point event. The true turning point occurred when a local child went missing temporarily, only to be found hours later near the outskirts of town in a state of fear and confusion. Witnesses reported seeing the twins nearby, though no direct interaction was confirmed. This event triggered a coordinated law enforcement response, including interviews, home inspections, and heightened surveillance. For the first time, the Culpeper twins were no longer just unusual children. They were central figures in a case that raised questions about their potential for danger. The combination of intelligence, secrecy, and emerging moral detachment suggested that prior incidents were merely a prelude to something far more alarming. Parents and community under pressure. The twins' parents faced scrutiny and internal conflict. Their attempts to explain or rationalize the twins' behavior were met with suspicion. Family dynamics became strained, as both parents struggled to balance protection, discipline, and accountability. Neighbors, meanwhile, debated whether the twins were dangerous or misunderstood geniuses, creating an atmosphere of tension and fear in the town. Foreshadowing federal interest, the turning point set the stage for federal involvement. As local authorities realized the potential complexity and severity of the twins' actions, preliminary reports hinted at patterns that could extend beyond the town. This laid the groundwork for larger agencies to eventually become interested in the case, marking the beginning of what would later be termed a file America tried to forget. Conclusion of the turning point phase. Part 4 underscores the moment when childhood peculiarity escalated into a matter of serious concern. The major incident, combined with law enforcement scrutiny and community unease, transformed the Culpeper twins from local oddities into individuals whose intelligence, secrecy, and moral ambiguity posed questions that could not be ignored. This turning point was the catalyst for the investigations, conspiracies, and dark revelations that would define their story in the years to come. Federal interest emerges following the turning point incidents. Local law enforcement realized the Culpeper twins' behaviors were beyond the scope of routine policing. Reports of coordinated mischief, manipulative skill, and disturbing experimentation prompted initial contact with state authorities. By the early 1970s, federal agencies began showing interest, particularly in the twins' unusual psychological profile and the potential for escalation. The FBI received preliminary reports and photographs documenting minor crimes, unusual behaviors, and patterns of secret communication between the twins. While still inconclusive, the reports suggested a need for a more thorough investigation. The twins' intelligence, secrecy, and ability to evade scrutiny were noted as potentially significant factors in national security or criminal profiling research. Discovery of hidden evidence during home inspections and neighborhood interviews. Investigators discovered signs of extensive secret activity. Hidden compartments in the twins' rooms contained notebooks, coded journals, and intricate diagrams. Some journals detailed experiments on animals, local environmental observations, and cryptic personal reflections. Even more unsettling were recordings and sketches suggesting a fascination with control, power, and psychological manipulation. Investigators began to realize that the twins' early crimes were a precursor to more severe tendencies, underpinned by meticulous planning and moral detachment. Witness accounts and community members provided a mix of testimony, some helpful, some contradictory. Neighbors described seeing the twins observing individuals for extended periods, hiding in unusual locations, or engaging in synchronized, secretive behaviors. Friends and former classmates recounted subtle forms of intimidation, pranks that left lasting emotional effects, and the twins' uncanny ability to predict reactions. The community's fear intensified as stories spread. Parents became reluctant to let children play near the Culpeper household. Local businesses and schools reported strange occurrences that, when traced, often led back to the twins, reinforcing the perception of them as both brilliant and dangerous. Attempts to interrogate the twins. Investigators attempted formal interviews with Alexander and Benjamin. Each session revealed their extraordinary intelligence and psychological insight. The twins could answer questions with precision, deflect uncomfortable topics, and maintain calm under pressure. One agent noted, "It's as if they are not just thinking in parallel, they are thinking as one. Questioning one is like questioning both at the same time. Their coordination is beyond anything I've ever seen in teenagers." These interviews provided some insight into the twins' thought processes but raised more questions than answers. Their fascination with secrecy, observation, and control became increasingly evident, and agents struggled to determine the twins' motivations or potential threat level. Pattern recognition and profiling behavioral analysts compiled detailed profiles. They noted repeated patterns: the twins' penchant for secrecy, synchronization, and manipulation, their detachment from societal norms, and their meticulous record-keeping of both experiments and interactions. Psychologists hypothesized that the twins' bond reinforced their antisocial tendencies. Each twin amplified the other's behaviors, creating a feedback loop that encouraged risk-taking, deception, and experimentation with social and moral boundaries. Complications in the investigation. Despite mounting evidence, investigators faced significant obstacles. The twins' intelligence, secrecy, and ability to manipulate witnesses complicated data collection. Some evidence, such as journals or hidden compartments, could only be interpreted with difficulty. The twins were careful to leave minimal traceable footprints, further frustrating investigators. Media attention, although limited, began adding pressure. Sensationalized stories in local newspapers exaggerated some incidents, creating public fascination and fear. Investigators had to navigate community hysteria while attempting to collect verifiable evidence. Foreshadowing national concern, the investigation revealed a troubling potential. If unchecked, the twins' behaviors could escalate beyond local incidents. Analysts began considering the possibility of criminal activity extending beyond their hometown. Speculation arose that the twins could influence or manipulate others, enact larger schemes, or participate in activities that might catch the attention of federal authorities again in the future. The case, already complex, hinted at a deeper psychological, sociological, and possibly criminal phenomenon. Federal agencies began quietly sharing intelligence, creating what would later be referred to in classified files as an unusual but potentially high-risk case. Conclusion of the investigation deepens. Phase Part 5 illustrates the transition from local curiosity to formal investigation. The Culpeper twins had moved beyond small crimes, drawing the attention of multiple authorities due to their intelligence, secrecy, and moral detachment. Hidden evidence, witness testimony, and their unnerving coordination painted a picture of individuals capable of manipulating both people and situations with alarming skill. As the Culpeper twins' activities continued to draw attention, federal agencies quietly began compiling classified files. These documents, hidden from public scrutiny, contained detailed psychological assessments, witness testimonies, and evidence of the twins' calculated behaviors. Some files suggested that the twins' intelligence and manipulative skills could pose risks extending beyond small-scale crimes. The secrecy surrounding these files indicated that authorities considered the case sensitive. Analysts debated whether releasing information could spark public panic or reveal investigative methods. The twins, meanwhile, remained unaware of the growing shadow of government scrutiny. Destruction and suppression of evidence reports indicate that certain documents, photographs, and case notes were destroyed or removed from public archives. Investigators faced bureaucratic obstacles whenever they attempted to retrieve complete records. Whispers among law enforcement hinted at internal disagreements. Some officers believed the twins' actions were extremely dangerous, while others considered it a psychological curiosity best kept under wraps. Even outside investigators noted anomalies: missing reports, inconsistent case files, and unexplained gaps in timelines. These irregularities contributed to the perception that authorities were actively suppressing the story, though the precise reasoning remains unclear. Mysterious witness accounts. Some witnesses later recounted experiences that were deliberately omitted from official reports. A former neighbor claimed to have observed the twins engaging in unsettling experiments involving animals and small-scale psychological manipulation of children in the neighborhood. Another former teacher recalled unusual notebooks filled with coded instructions and diagrams suggesting premeditated acts of intimidation. These accounts were either ignored or heavily redacted in official documentation. Investigators attempting to corroborate these testimonies encountered resistance from higher authorities, further fueling the sense of a coordinated cover-up. Twins' disappearance from public view during the mid-1970s. Alexander and Benjamin began withdrawing from public life. School records show declining attendance and minimal community interaction. Friends and neighbors reported that the twins were seen less frequently outside their home. Some accounts suggest they were aware of increased scrutiny and deliberately created distance to avoid detection. This disappearance coincided with heightened federal interest and the mysterious suppression of documents. The twins' reduced public presence only intensified speculation about their activities and the reasons behind the cover-up. Internal government debate. Internal memos later revealed a divided opinion within federal agencies. One faction argued that the twins' intelligence and psychological sophistication made them potentially dangerous if left unchecked. Another faction viewed the case as unusual but not immediately threatening, advocating for containment rather than exposure. This debate led to a fragmented approach. Partial investigations, selective record-keeping, and deliberate obfuscation of sensitive information. The twins' story began to fade from public discourse, buried under layers of classified bureaucracy. Conspiracies and conflicting accounts. The secrecy surrounding the Culpeper twins gave rise to conspiracy theories. Some suggested that the twins were subjects of covert experiments. Others believed that authorities feared public outrage over their calculated behaviors. Conflicting witness statements, redacted files, and unexplained absences contributed to a sense of unresolved mystery. Analysts later determined that the twins' ability to manipulate perception, both in childhood and adolescence, likely played a role in perpetuating these conspiracies. By controlling what others observed and documenting events selectively, the twins created layers of ambiguity that further complicated investigations. Foreshadowing modern revelations. Although much of the cover-up was successful in obscuring details for decades, fragments of the story survived. Researchers, journalists, and whistleblowers would later piece together partial accounts, revealing the twins' extraordinary intelligence, their calculated actions, and the deliberate suppression of information by authorities. The cover-up not only protected the twins from immediate exposure but also contributed to their legend. Individuals whose actions were too disturbing for public scrutiny, whose files were hidden away, and whose full story remains partially shrouded in secrecy. Conclusion of the cover-up. Phase Part 6 emphasizes the lengths to which authorities went to obscure the Culpeper twins' activities. Destruction of evidence, selective reporting, and deliberate suppression created an aura of mystery and fear. The twins' withdrawal from public life, combined with bureaucratic secrecy, ensured that the story would survive only in fragments, laying the groundwork for future revelations and confirming why their case became known as a file America tried to forget. The case resurfaces decades after the Culpeper twins faded from public view. Fragments of their story began to resurface. Investigative journalists, independent researchers, and retired law enforcement officers unearthed old files, interviews, and eyewitness accounts that had been buried under layers of bureaucracy. These revelations painted a clearer picture of the twins' intelligence, manipulative behavior, and the government's unusual handling of the case. Some of the rediscovered documents suggested that Alexander and Benjamin were far more calculated than previously understood. Journals, coded notes, and diagrams revealed an intricate pattern of observation, manipulation, and experimentation that had gone unnoticed during their adolescence. Whistleblower accounts. Whistleblowers from law enforcement and federal agencies came forward, confirming the existence of suppressed reports and destroyed evidence. They described internal debates about the potential threat posed by the twins and the unusual decision to remove key records from public archives. One former FBI analyst stated, "We weren't just investigating two troubled adolescents. Their intelligence and coordination suggested capabilities that could have escalated beyond our understanding. Some files were classified because we didn't know how to handle it publicly." These accounts gave researchers and the public new insights into why the twins' story was effectively hidden for so long. Interviews with witnesses and experts. Modern investigative efforts included interviews with surviving witnesses, psychologists, and criminal profilers. Neighbors recalled the twins' eerie synchronization and their obsession with secrecy. Former classmates described subtle psychological manipulation that left lasting emotional effects. Experts in behavioral psychology and criminology analyzed these accounts, concluding that the twins exhibited traits consistent with extreme antisocial behavior, heightened intelligence, and a shared reinforcement of deviant tendencies. Their bond, already unusual in adolescence, amplified both creativity and moral detachment. Rediscovered evidence, some previously suppressed evidence finally came to light. Photographs of hidden rooms, coded journals, and detailed notes documenting interactions with animals and humans provided researchers with tangible proof of the twins' extraordinary planning and manipulation. These documents suggested that their small-scale adolescent experiments were the foundation for more elaborate psychological and behavioral strategies. Analysts noted that the twins' methods anticipated techniques used in criminal profiling, social manipulation, and covert psychological observation, decades ahead of their time. Impact on public perception. The modern revelations reignited public interest in the Culpeper twins. Documentaries, books, and online discussions explored the story from multiple angles, emphasizing intelligence, secrecy, and moral ambiguity. People debated whether the twins were misunderstood geniuses, dangerous sociopaths, or a combination of both. The case also sparked reflection on governmental ethics. Why was information suppressed, and what lessons might have been lost due to the cover-up? The twins' story became a cautionary tale about intelligence, secrecy, and the human desire to control narratives. Ongoing mysteries. Despite decades of investigation, many questions remain unanswered. The exact extent of the twins' activities, the motivations behind their actions, and the full scope of government suppression are still matters of speculation. Modern researchers continue to uncover fragments, but some details are likely lost forever. This unresolved mystery contributes to the enduring fascination with Alexander and Benjamin Culpeper. Their story demonstrates how intelligence, secrecy, and moral detachment can create situations that confound both community and authorities, and why certain cases are buried in obscurity. Legacy and lessons. The modern revelations underscore the twins' enduring impact. Beyond their immediate community, their story influenced criminal psychology, behavioral research, and investigative approaches. Analysts argue that studying the twins offers lessons in early detection of deviant behavior, the role of sibling reinforcement in psychological development, and the societal risks of secrecy and suppression. Conclusion of Modern Revelations. Phase Part 7 illustrates how the Culpeper twins' story resurfaced decades later, revealing the extraordinary depth of their intelligence, manipulation, and secrecy. Whistleblower accounts, rediscovered evidence, and expert analysis illuminate why the case was suppressed, and why it continues to intrigue researchers, journalists, and the public. The stage is set for the final chapter: reflection on legacy, societal impact, and the chilling questions that remain unanswered, solidifying the twins' place as a story America tried to forget. The story of Alexander and Benjamin Culpeper reverberated far beyond their hometown. Although many details remained classified or suppressed for decades, the rediscovered fragments and modern analyses sparked broader discussions about intelligence, morality, and the ethics of secrecy. Psychologists, sociologists, and criminologists studied the twins' behaviors to understand the interplay between extraordinary intellect and moral detachment. Their case became an example of how sibling dynamics could amplify antisocial tendencies and the importance of early intervention when unusual behaviors persist despite social norms. Influence on law enforcement and psychological research. Federal and local authorities reviewed the case to assess its implications for investigative methods. Analysts noted that the Culpeper twins anticipated behaviors that would later become standard in criminal profiling: manipulation of witnesses, creating alibis, and documenting observations meticulously. Behavioral psychologists cited the twins in studies exploring extreme intelligence paired with antisocial traits. Their case provided insight into how early detection of moral ambiguity and deviant behavior could influence long-term outcomes. Additionally, the case raised ethical questions about surveillance, intervention, and the responsibilities of authorities to intervene before actions escalate. Public fascination and media. The rediscovery of the Culpeper twins' story inspired books, documentaries, and online explorations. Public fascination was driven by the eerie combination of genius, secrecy, and potential danger. Social media and digital archives allowed for collective reconstruction of events, with researchers piecing together timelines, witness accounts, and surviving evidence. The twins became symbolic of the hidden, unsettling truths that society often prefers to ignore. Their story raised questions. How should communities respond to extraordinary intelligence paired with moral detachment? What responsibilities do authorities have when a case challenges societal norms? Moral and psychological reflection at the heart of the story lies a chilling examination of human behavior. The Culpeper twins' intelligence and bond provided them with extraordinary capabilities, but their lack of moral restraint amplified the risks associated with their actions. Psychologists argue that their story underscores the importance of empathy, early intervention, and understanding the social factors that influence moral development. The twins' ability to manipulate, control, and observe illustrates the dangerous potential of unchecked intellect combined with secrecy. Their story prompts reflection on societal responsibility, the ethics of intervention, and the consequences of suppressing uncomfortable truths. Unanswered questions despite decades of investigation, critical questions remain. What ultimately became of Alexander and Benjamin Culpeper? Were all their activities ever fully documented, or were significant portions intentionally destroyed? Did the twins continue to influence or manipulate others later in life? The partial suppression of evidence and the removal of key files ensure that these questions remain largely unanswered. This ambiguity has contributed to the story's enduring mystery and its classification as a file America tried to forget. Cultural legacy. The Culpeper twins story continues to influence popular culture, inspiring fictionalized accounts, crime documentaries, and academic studies. Their narrative illustrates the complexity of human behavior, the risks posed by extraordinary intellect without moral guidance, and the consequences of societal denial or suppression of uncomfortable truths. Final reflection. In the end, the tale of Alexander and Benjamin Culpeper serves as a cautionary narrative. It demonstrates how intelligence, secrecy, and moral detachment can combine to create behaviors that challenge communities, authorities, and society at large. It also shows the consequences of burying knowledge, how suppression can create legends, myths, and unresolved mysteries that linger for decades. The Culpeper twins remain an enigma, brilliant yet unsettling, hidden yet partially revealed, and forever a part of the hidden files that America tried to forget. Their story reminds us of the fragile balance between genius and morality, secrecy and accountability, and curiosity and danger. If you want, I can now help you break each part into detailed 300-hour storytelling sections with scene-by-scene narration beats, ready for YouTube voiceover production. This would turn the outline into a complete immersive script. Do you want me to do that? It too.